against women is rife in all classes and race groups. But white women, because of education and financial resources, they're in better position than colored women. Now, when we now talk about technology advancements and domestic violence victims, technology is a double-edged sword. Now, the last speaker was talking about using technology to educate, to make the awareness known. But at the same time, technology has been used as a tool to facilitate violence. And it can also be used as a tool to prevent violence. So care needs to be taken. Is a double-edged sword. The advancement in technology has complicated the issue of violence against females. Technology-related violence can take different forms, and victims can experience sexual, psychological, or economic abuse, and sometimes physical abuse. So it can graduate from sexual abuse to psychological one, to economic abuse, and to physical abuse. Now, a project that was carried out in 12 developing countries, including South Africa, revealed that technology-related violence is on the increase. Despite the fact that we are going about telling about the awareness that you have to be aware of violence, but it's still on the increase. So what is the problem? Victims experience similar kinds of violations and harms around the world. So it's not only limited to South Africa. And it was also recorded that threats and death threats are frequently delivered to right people through mobile phones, text messages, or emails. I want to believe most people, I want to believe everybody that is there, you use mobile phone, you receive text messages and emails. Perpetrators, they are now using ICT in a different way against domestic violence victims. And ICT provides new and more extensive techniques for the control and abuse of females. So they're using the opportunity to misuse the ICT technology against women, against those that are victims. So ICT enable perpetrators to send insulting, humiliating, intimidating messages and images from anywhere in the world. So that simply tells us that it is not limited to a particular location. Thinking if I should leave a place, I would no longer be a victim of violence. But in this case, you can still send through technology, you can send the images, intimidating messages from anywhere, and the victim will still receive it. And this implies that physically leaving the perpetrators does not end technology-related violence. And this makes it more difficult for victims to identify and take action against the perpetrators. More so, there is high rate of mobile phone penetration in South Africa. From the study I found, 80% of the population own a mobile phone, and almost half of them being women. Just of recent, somebody told me the population has even gone higher than that. So if you have 80% or maybe more than 80% having mobile phone, and more than half of them being women. So it means it is easier to get in touch with women and even domestic violence victims through the use of mobile phone. The probability that domestic violence victims use mobile phone and go online is very high. So perpetrators can do use mobile phones, text messaging, and email. And also they use social networking platforms and chatting such as Facebook, MySpace, Twitter to deliver their atrocity. Perpetrators use mobile phone to control, harass, and sort females. And that is one of the most technology-related violence identified in South Africa. In this case, they use mobile phone, they can use frequent phone calls, text messages, to monitor, harass, threaten, and sort their victims. And this has a negative impact on the victim because it can stress the recipients. Most perpetrators use a combination of calling and hanging up, silent calls, conventional calls, and abusive calls, just to monitor their victims and to victimize them. Misuse of social networking platforms and chatting by domestic violence perpetrators. Now, I'll be talking about Facebook, MySpace, Twitter. This platform could be misused as a weapon to harm domestic violence victims. Most females, they just leave the information just anyhow on Facebook without knowing checking about the privacy issue, and the perpetrator use it to monitor them, to threaten them, and to harass them. Social networking platform can enable perpetrators of domestic violence to use email, blogs, to monitor, to torture their victims. So many people are in that category. They are being tortured because when I went to domestic violence shelter in Western Cape, and when I got there, I was just trying to chat with one of the females that were there, and she was telling me her experiences, how a former partner was using mobile phone, sending text messages, and at the end of the day, she had to just abandon the phone, stop using the line, try to get another one, which is not an interesting thing for them. And most times they feel they are still unsafe, despite the fact that they've left the abuse. These platforms have been used by perpetrators to intimidate, insult, and mobilize opinions against their victims. And this has led to some victims committing suicide. Also, social networking platform of animals can enable perpetrators, of domestic violence to create a false identity and continue to threaten their victims. A study that was carried out in US, from that study, it was revealed that a woman decided to leave Facebook or social networking platform because of the partner, and later she joined another social networking platform, but the husband keeps using different names, using different profile name to get in touch with her, to communicate with her, and the experience wasn't pleasant. In summary, the consequences of misuse of ICT by domestic violence perpetrator cannot be overemphasized. Majority of victims suffer anxiety, insomnia, mental torment, stress, fear, and sometimes physical injury. While some females have become homeless, jobless, hopeless, lonely, but some have lost their lives. Necessary actions need to be taken to promote female safety and well-being in the digital age. This is where my research comes in. Now, these are the things I found from the literature. And towards the future, my research is interested in looking at what are the consequences and effects of technology, mobile phones, on the experiences or life of domestic violence victims in South Africa. And the research philosophy will be interpretive. And my approach to theory is inductive in the sense that I'll go out to interview, to observe what is happening before getting and come up with observation. This is what I've observed, come up with a theory. Because looking at the literature, apart from feminist theory that I found, there is no technology that actually look at ICT and domestic violence. So which is not that easy for me to go deductive. Research purpose, my research purpose is descriptive and explanatory. So I'll be coming to explain, to give a description of what is happening in the time of South Africa, in the context of South Africa, and to also explain how this theory can be used to explain what is happening, the relationship between ICT and domestic violence victim. And my research methodology is qualitative. The research time frame is cross-sectional, in the sense that I work within the space of a year, collect my data. And my data collection will be participant observation. So I intend going to domestic violence shelters, working with them, create rapport with them, with the victims, before going ahead to collect my data. Because we all know that this experience is personal, and except you trust somebody, you might not be ready to release the information out. And another method I will use is semi-structured interview. So after participant observation, I will see you semi-structured interview just to gather my data. And my sampling strategy is theoretical sampling, following grounded theory methodology, since there's no theory that is suitable for the study. So it will be theoretical sampling, in the sense that it depends on what I'm getting from one interview or from one observation that will inform the next stage of data collection. And my data analysis will follow open coding, ASIA coding, and selective coding. Thank you for your time.
Person first. You may go ahead with your question.
Thank you. My questions is directed to the first speaker side. My name is Benedict. I'm from Shoko. I'm a researcher. To the first speakers, how did you, or have you ever thought of including disability within your gender issues? Because in most instances, students with disabilities, they might experience violence, not necessarily intentionally, but because of mostly they rely on assistance from other students, and which in some cases might be linked or associated to violence or even abuse. The second question would be really also to the first speakers. How did you address the whole idea of masculinity in because most of these students, they come from a background where patriarchy was when they grew up in a particular society.
Mm-hmm.
Now I assume that what is happening is more of modern masculinity. So now how did you address the whole idea of modern masculinity and versus old ideology of the manhood? And I think to the last speaker, could one be right if I could say, based on, because the first speakers towards the end, they use a clip, and at the end, the interviewer said something about women's understanding of violence, that they tend to think it as a normal way of living. So now, can one be right if I would say, perhaps then technological abuse, it is regarded as an abuse or as a violence because it has never been there before. So now that is why it might occur as an abuse, whereas it's not necessarily, well, one could say it's not necessarily an abuse. I don't know if my question is clear now.
Thank you.
Okay, may I proceed?
Oh, sure. I'm supposed to speak with a mic. Can everybody hear me? Okay, so thank you, Benedict. It's Cyan, and I'm responding to your first question about disability.
Yeah.
Haiku works hand in hand with the disability service at UCT. And so our work with Renette and Nafisa focuses on our engagement with them in residences as well. So if a student who's assisted would normally be staying in a residence, and if an occurrence such as trauma or violence did occur, then there would be processes through the Discrimination and Harassment Office where the student would be channeled and supported. So in terms of our engagement, it leads back to the presentation where I said we try to work and capacitate local strengths internally to have a holistic response for all students.
Patriarchal, modern, let's have those discussions in the classroom. Let's bring them to the fore and start to talk around these issues. So this is that you've been brought up with, this is what you've come into the room with. How would it put somebody at risk? So then move the discussions around these issues. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that we're saying we want to do either or. We want to see where the student is at and think about the notions that might that are attached to those masculinity that might place students at risk. So it's certainly something that we're seeing, and I can't say that there's a certain grouping of students who are going in this direction and they have this kind of masculinity. I think that there's different notions of masculinity on the campus, and we need to think about how we engage with those in the classroom space, and that's what we look at.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Based on the question you asked about technology abuse is not an abuse. Now, my research is not really talking about technology as an abuse. It's talking about how technology could be misused by perpetrators of domestic violence, or by perpetrator against domestic violence victims. So I was only looking at the contribution of technology to their experiences. How has it complicated their issue? How has it worsened their case? Yeah, that is exactly what I was talking about. Not that technology is an abuse. There's an abuse of technology is another type of domestic violence, or another type of gender-based violence.
But anyone else?